I'm sorry to interrupt you. I had to say that because the reason he's doing this is because he's going to play c3. That's it. I'm sorry. I had to bring this out there because I had some idea, which is that he was in the exact same situation against Gukesh.
Yeah, and he did the same thing too.
And he did the same thing, and I think overall that strategy worked just fine for him in that game, even though he later on kind of outplayed himself. But his opening strategy worked out great. So it makes sense that he just stuck with it.
Yep, I think it is a very wise opening choice as well, especially if you play e4. If you want to play for a win, I think Magnus already knows that Pragg will go with the Sicilian. And then c3 is obviously a very safe choice against it.
Yes, and by the way, Gukesh against him, I think, played with d5, and Pragg goes for knight f6, which he also did against Arjun. So Pragg has, he's going to this opening for the second time in this tournament in a must-win situation. It worked against Arjun, but let's see how it works against Magnus. So bishop c4, knight b6, and bishop b3. Yes. Now, the d5, I remember, is the main line with e takes, queen takes, and I think castles, bishop e6, and all of that stuff. It's very dangerous to take this pawn. Right, because I guess white just has a ton of compensation for the pawn. They have better development, more space. So normally black is playing d5 here. I guess he can play d6. It could be the same thing.
Yeah, I think it will end up with ed and queen d, and then that's the main line. But I think maybe Praggnanandha is going to come up with something else because, he has a very wide repertoire, so maybe he'll try g6. Oh no, d6 he did.
d6, yeah, this is different. And there is the move e6 here. I just want to point out that, queen d6 is sort of it's the main move, but I'm pretty sure this exists. Like these types of ideas where you try to take with the bishop and you go into the isolated pawn position. But he went for queen d6. And castles is on the board, and now generally we're seeing bishop e6 to neutralize this bishop.
Right. Wow, so let's see. We had two decisive results in the first game and two must-win situation. Nijat Abbasov and Praggnanandha needs to win the second game.
And they both need to win with black.
Yeah.
Which is definitely a tall order.
Right.
All right, so Magnus has castled. And let's see what other moves than bishop e6 can Pragg come up with here. It's played 84% of the time. But let's take a look at this opening. So we got Fabi as white going for the Rosalimo, and Nijat again playing e6. This time Fabi, he hasn't played the the Rosalimo against Nijat before.
In the first game, yeah.
It was like Carlsen. This was
Carlsen,
yeah. Nijat's game against Carlsen and Vidit.
Yeah.
All right, so he goes to this, and instead of white capturing here early and playing for these b3 systems, Fabiano just castles, knight e7, rook e1, a6, back, d5. It's funny because it looks a little bit like a c3 Sicilian, except there's no white pawn here, right? Knight f6 and bishop e3 is on the board. Okay, well, it's very solid for white, and he's encouraging a bunch of trades to happen on that square. Solid structure, small imbalance in the pawn structure with the pawn majorities being on different sides of the board, but basically when you need to make a draw with white, this is certainly a good strategy.
Right, so yeah, I think it's both players, Magnus Carlsen and Fabiano, they're just two experienced players, and they know exactly what type of situation they're in, whether they have to play for a draw or they have to win. And their opening choices show it a lot.
Right, so Nijat lashes out with knight f6, knight g4, but probably this bishop is just going to move away. And this is definitely a risky move for black, right? Moving the same knight in the opening twice.
Yeah, so it just wants to take the bishop, and what does it do again? What if you play d5, for example? Can it be moved?
D5 is interesting. But D5, you know what the problem is? It might be that I'm taking.
And rook takes.
But then you take with the rook, and then my knight has to move somewhere.
If knight e7 or b4, I can play knight c3.
Yeah, that's actually quite interesting, D5, yeah?
But Fabi didn't play
Yeah,
it.
he didn't play it. He moved his
Yeah.
bishop away. But definitely an interesting move. All right, he just went bishop G5. I think bishop E7 was played.
f6.
F6 was played. Okay. And where's this bishop going to go? It's not going to go anywhere. D5.
Bishop f4.
Oh, bishop F4. D5 was actually a powerful option as well. Now, the point here is that, well, if you take with the knight, then you lose that knight in the end.
And if you take with the pawn, I think just...
You can take with the pawn. It's actually a little strange that Fabi, but then H3, right? Maybe he's trying to play against this knight.
Or you still can take on d4 and then take on... But it's a bit risky because there's e5 too.
Yeah, you mean like there, but yeah, then the queen would take, and then there's that, yeah. So I think he's going to go H3 here. Meanwhile, should we take a little look at Magnus's board? Okay. We've had some events here, and the first big one was that Pragg did not go for the main line with bishop e6. He went for bishop f5. I mean, we're kind of waiting to see where he would deviate because he needs to, right? Try to get off the beaten track and get a game out of this. And after bishop takes, knight takes d4. So we're going for an isolated pawn position, but we traded off a pair of knights. Pawn takes, and e6 on the board. So this is not the first time in this tournament Magnus has had an isolated pawn position. He also had one against Gukesh, where at some point it sort of started working against him. So e6 and knight c3, bishop e7.
And now, yeah, Magnus is still thinking. And he's
Queen
ahead
f3.
a clock. So
Yes.
queen f3, and then pretty much I think just develop the bishop on c1.
Yeah. This has been played in some games of good players, this whole position. Pierre Rune Robson, there's an older game, Lautier versus Polgar in 1993, Rosenthal is Bolagon, so this is not like some new position. And queen f3 is the most popular move, like by far. So what do black players usually do here? They either castle or they try to defend this pawn. So if they castle,
Do you take the pawn?
could take the pawn, or we just play d5, which is actually what he's going to do. I actually have no doubt that Magnus is going to play that move.
d5, yeah?
Yeah, why wouldn't you? In a situation where you need a draw, you can play that and then just trade off everything, and it's going to be a draw. So actually, this is super solid. By the way, I have to say this is an example of, again, smart preparation, right? Like, because he can start with any first move, right? He starts with e4 because it's like the most forcing castles is on the board. So is my prediction right? Is he going to play this move? We'll
I think
see.
so too, yeah. Yeah, d5 will just offer many trades there.
Yeah.
A lot of pieces going to be traded. And he did, yes.
Yeah, it's too, like, even if this move was better, objectively, you still wouldn't
You
play
still
it.
play d5,
You would
yeah.
still play d5, yeah. So what I was saying about like smart preparation in terms of like choosing the right first move, he narrows his opponent's options. He kind of pushes him into the Sicilian,
Yep.
right? Because you can sort of predict he'll go for it again. And then he has this c3 Sicilian weapon, which is also kind of narrowing the options. And he goes for these kinds of positions which are very solid, right? So really like not giving his opponent a chance
To mud the water.
yeah, exactly. Good expression, to muddy the water. Yeah, it's quite smart.
Yeah, but also it's an advantage of being a very universal player.
Yes,
yeah?
yes.
I mean, I'd like to have such a smart preparation as well.
Yeah, but you have to know how to play all these types of positions, know all the
Exactly.
theory. Yeah, of course, it's not
Exactly.
easy. It's
It's
like
not.
it's like you're able to be smart because of your amount of chess knowledge.
Yes.
yes, you're able to move around when you need to. Yeah.
So d5 is on the board, and it's posing some problem for Praggnanandha because, well, if he's not in a must-win situation, the position is totally fine.
Yeah.
But he needs to avoid some trades. But if he's avoiding it, white will just stand better.
Yeah, I mean, right now we have moves like Queen D7 is the most popular, Bishop F6. But the thing is, like, we're just going to be taking here, right?
Yep.
I mean, okay, you can throw in some other moves, maybe Rook D1, Bishop F4. Bishop F4 could be an idea, but then there's maybe like E5.
Oh, and I think you can just pull back. Yeah.
Pull back.
And then Rook E1.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I meant.
fine.
If you're trying to
Yeah.
avoid it, it's
So this game is likely to be less exciting than the first one.
well, yeah, you're right. But I think Praggnanandha will try to force the matters. So we will see. He's
Before-
known for being a very
Could be an
creative
idea,
player.
but
Yeah.
then there's maybe
So
like E5.
I'm sure he will come
You're
up
right,
with something
but I
up
think
on his sleeve
Praggnanandha
and
will try to force the
yeah, he's
matters.
thinking right
So
now.
we will
So
see.
He's
Before-
known
might expect,
for
you
being
know,
a
like
very
some
Could be an
sacrificial
idea,
player.
but
Yeah.
then there's maybe
So,
like E5.
I'm sure he
Sacrificing the
will
bishop.
come up with
Right,
something
but
up on his
Yeah,
sleeve and
sacrifice it.
try to force the
Yeah, he's
matters.
thinking right
So
now.
Yeah,
we'll
no,
see.
I mean,
He's
okay,
They might
it's
expect
hard.
for
He's
being
got
a
his
very
work cut out.
sacrificial
He's
player.
trying,
Yeah.
trying to keep
So,
this complicated.
I'm sure he will
Bishop.
come up with something up
Again,
on
you
his
know,
sleeve.
kind of like white can probably try to play this
Yeah, he's
position for
thinking
himself.
right now.
Yeah, no,
So
I mean,
he's-
okay,
they
well,
might
it's
expect
hard.
for
He's
being
got
a
his
very
work cut out.
sacrificial
He's trying to
player.
trying to keep this
So,
complicated.
I'm sure he will
Bishop.
come up with
So
something
again,
up on
you
his
know,
sleeve.
he's got like
Yeah,
white wanted to play this
he's
position
thinking
for
right
himself.
now.
So, I mean, okay, well,
They might
it's
expect
hard.
for
He's
being
got
a
his
very
work cut out.
sacrificial
He's trying to
player.
uninspired
So,
complicated.
I'm sure he will come up with
So
something
again,
up on
you
his
know,
sleeve.
yeah, we'll see what Prague is going to come up with now, but certainly the way Magnus has steered this game is unpleasant. It's very unpleasant to be in this position when you're like in a must-win situation. Has,
Also, in a must-win situation is Abbasov, which
Yeah.
is currently worse against Fabiano.
okay, so he did attack the knight that had wandered in to G4. He sent the knight to H6. Then he captured it, so black's pawn structure is a bit messy. And then he went knight D2. So his plan is simple. He wants to go knight B3 and take the pawn.
Yeah, and using the fact that the king is still in the center is going to be very weak, yeah? Yeah, I like this idea. You just knight b3 and you just develop this bishop somehow using the diagonal. It would be a dream if you can put the bishop or the queen on h5.
Yeah, that's definitely the big square. So he has to go bishop. Did he go bishop C5? No, he didn't. He went for something else. I was thinking he'd go for bishop C5 to protect the pawn. He went for
b5.
B5? Okay. Oh, I guess I don't even understand that move that well. I mean, I guess he has hopes of putting the bishop there, but first he needs to make sure he doesn't hang the pawn. So A4 was just instant by Fabi.
Very thematic.
Yeah. Interesting how that was instant to him. Like, for me, it would not be so obvious. Like, I would think, like, why not knight B3? You know? So, like, this is where I would spend my time, right? For him, it's just like a second. It'd be interesting to ask him, like, how do you know, like, within a second that this is a better move than knight B3?
I think you still preserve the idea of knight b3, while at the same time you have this free file for the rook and could be useful around the 7th rank later.
Yeah, yeah. All right, so after A4,
Rook B8.
B8 was played. No, of course, now it's nice because he also, this is a weak pawn now as well. So now just knight B3. Wow. So poor Nijat, like in a lost position, in a must-win situation.
Yeah, but I like what he's doing. He's trying to, keep the pair of bishops. It's a quite imbalanced. Look at the pawn
Yeah.
structure. It's very unusual.
Yeah.
So something like this, if your opponent is unfamiliar, it could confuse him.
Yeah, and I'm thinking like, oh, right, you're right. Like if you can hide the king here, get the bishop on the long diagonal, get the rook to the open file. I mean, there are scenarios where
There are scenarios,
Yeah, there are
yeah.
scenarios. Like, I mean, white has to be a little bit careless to let all of that happen. But I mean, of course, there is some potential for black's pieces. So
So the position
Yeah.
is better for Fabi, but it's
Yeah.
still quite wild. So let's see if there's any development in the Magnus's game.
there is. All right. So what did Prague come up with? He went bishop g6, which I think is not actually even a very popular move in this position. Like, it's barely been played. Let's see if there's been any top players going for this. I see just one game. I think Raja Harshit did this in 2017. All right, so he played bishop g6. A bit surprising.
Yeah, I think Praggnanandha just wants to keep all the pieces on the board.
Well, yeah, but like, look what happens now. Now he gets a weak, isolated pawn. Man, Magnus is just steering this game like exactly in the direction he wants. So he goes queen e2, pawn's under attack.
King h8. Queen takes.
King h8. He gave up the pawn. Then there was a queen trade and bishop c5, and wow, yeah, no, this is going to be just. I mean, he's not even letting him get into the game. I mean, he's like, okay,
I give you my pawn back.
yeah, I give you the pawn back. Like he's not even interested. Like, I mean, in trying to keep this extra pawn. He's like, I mean, obviously there are tactics. So Prague does have compensation, but just bishop e3, and it's like, you got to trade pieces. They made a trade.
Or maybe it cannot be taken back, because after takes, how are you going to take this pawn
Yeah,
back?
how are you even getting this pawn back?
Because there's
Maybe
bishop
rook
f7.
f8.
Bishop f7 is always there. But you...
Yep, I go with this rook. Don't I get it back? Or do you get your rook to the 7th?
Oh, you mean you want to take my bishop first or not?
Oh, yeah, I'm taking the bishop and going right here.
Okay, but then rook b7, right?
Like this?
Yeah, just bishop f7.
Well, I have knight c4, so I take.
Okay, then it's a good thing. Like
I mean, sure, white is not having any trouble here. White is the first one on the 7th rank, but, I don't know. Yeah, white's better. If you move there, then I just take your pawn, right? So black has to defend the pawn, and then I guess try to play knight c4.
And I'll play rook d1 and get the 7th rank.
Yeah.
Yeah, so white is just definitely better here.
Yeah. I mean, it's a tall order. But again, I really think that, like, making these correct choices, knowing what kind of, being able to go for these positions that are just unpleasant for the opponent, that's definitely a skill in itself, right? Like, it might not look very exciting to us, right? Like, and Carlsen's obviously not trying to make this game exciting. He doesn't need any excitement in this game. But just imagine, like, remember what we talked about when you're in a situation where you need a draw, you want to kind of make your opponent forget that they're trying to play for a win. That's the situation that Prague is in now. Like, you can see it, like, it. It's just completely obvious that even Prague is looking at this and is like, I can't really win this.
You can see it from his body language, yeah?
Yeah, what did he do in terms, he went for rook e8, right?
So...
And you know what's Magnus? Magnus just went back with the bishop to b3. He didn't even try bishop f7, which is a little surprising. Okay, but his move is fine because he just controls the knight, right? He's just trading and trading everything, and making a chess game not be exciting when you don't need it to be exciting is still a skill. Yes.
Yep, and Magnus is doing it. I mean, so far he's been like the director of their match, because on the first and second game of their classical matches, Magnus didn't into it at all, right? And then he just felt like, okay, I just want to make a quick draw, and quick draws they were. Yes. And now he's finally had his time to make extra rest.
Yep.
And now he's coming back on the tiebreak, and just like totally a director, like he.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it, for sure. I mean, he has set the tone for their match. Prague had his chance to play that first game where he was white. I mean, he played, he did what he could. Magnus had to defend a bit. He did that, and then, again, when Prague is white, I mean, he's trying to play. He had his chances today, too. He certainly did his best to create a game in that first rapid game.
Yep.
But Magnus just managed to neutralize it, and using his experience, his defensive skills, everything. And then kind of being relentless in that end game that he's known for.
Oh,
wow.
And he took the draw. And congratulations to Magnus Carlsen, our FIDE World Cup's winner.
Wow, yeah, this is such a good match. You have to say, he just got the job done. But he also produced a show for the chess world in that first game.
Right, yeah. Well, on the first game, Praggnanandha had all the chances, indeed. But Magnus Carlsen, with his experiences, just taking down the match like this, well, I think it was also a very good moment for Praggnanandha, because, man, to be the youngest finalist in the World Cup ever.
Yeah, I mean, this match doesn't take anything away from his incredible achievements in this tournament.
It's only adding up.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
I also feel like he's got to look at this experience as actually a very good learning experience because Magnus already showed a few good lessons. You know, first of all, the importance of the time management. Magnus has spoken about that before, right? He's spoken about how he likes to punish people who don't manage their time well.
Right.
And sometimes Prague has been getting kind of low on time in these tournaments, and he survived against other people. But, you know, Magnus showed him that it wasn't a good idea.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. But no, this World Cup has shown like a lot of incredible fights, yeah, among the youngsters. And Praggnanandha is just the symbol of everything because I like his fighting spirit. I
Yes.
like his demeanor. I like everything what he did. Like,
Yeah.
also the fact that he's bringing his mom here as a, you know, like a moral support. You
Yeah.
know? Like, man, he's just going to have like a very bright future.
Yeah,
And,
no, I absolutely. Actually, I don't feel like he did a lot wrong in this
No,
match.
no.
That's the thing. It wasn't like he lacked fighting spirit
No.
or character or motivation or anything. Sometimes, you know, I mean, like I said, it's a question, right? If you know that your opponent is like sick, you know, should you just try harder to be, you know, to create a game at the board? I mean, I know it's not the thing to do at top level chess, you know, go all out with the black pieces, right? It's not really, but like in a way you have to use all the advantages you have. So if you have that kind of merciless spirit, perhaps he should have like tried more with black and actually not went for the, you know, for e5 and the 4 knights. But again, you actually have to know that Carlsen is planning to make a draw. You have to know that, you know, whether he's feeling okay or not, right? So
Yep.
those are not obvious things at all, right? I'm just trying to like see like where were the mistakes in the match, right? Where he could have done a little bit better. I mean, today's game, all I can say is really like time management. Other than that, I think on the board he did what he could.
Yeah. The last mistake that Praggnanandha did, especially on the first rapid game, it was just because of his time situation. If he has enough time on the clock, I'm sure he would be able to hold the draw comfortably. But yes, this is the thing with the rapid tiebreak, right? Shorter time control, and you got to play faster. You have to manage your time even better. And Magnus is just so experienced.
He's so experienced. And I mean, okay, he comes out with a Sicilian, right? I mean, again, it's like maybe it's not the best choice given that Magnus has already shown what he's going to do against the Sicilian in that situation. Magnus has given away that piece of information by playing c3 against Gukesh. But again, it's like, you know, maybe Prague hasn't prepared for the scenario where he loses with white. Or maybe he doesn't, you know what else he can do in this situation where he needs to win with black against someone like Magnus, right? So it's like also, an experience thing that it just
Yes.
takes time to acquire, right? It's not like Magnus became like this overnight, right?
Yeah.